Hello, everyone. This is Greg, your host of Goddamn Gamecube. Welcome to Season 3. If you enjoy listening to our show, consider subscribing to us on YouTube for exclusive video content. Thank you and enjoy today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Goddamn Gamecube. Greg and Beppe are your hosts today, and we are continuing with our Metal Gear Solid retrospective. Of course, Derek is back with us. Derek, how we doing?
Oh, great.
Dude,
Just great.
If you guys want your brains to melt even more, today we're going to be talking about Metal Gear Solid 2. For me, this is my personal favorite. I only played...
Likewise.
Yeah, actually only played this like 2 or 3 years ago for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So, very fresh for me. For me, this is probably one of the best narratives I have ever played.
Mm-hmm.
And why it's special to me, before we sort of open up the floor here, why it's special to me is I think it's my favorite video game story that isn't just horrifically sad and terrible.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm such a sad sack when it comes to video game stories. This one is just so mind-blowing and cool that I can't wait to talk about it. So, Beppe, why don't you start us off and let's open up Metal Gear Solid 2.
Yes. So to start us off, I want to kind of clarify that this whole series, I'm going to be talking about how subversive, and kind of fourth wall breaking and doing all these crazy things that have never been done before. This one in particular is kind of pretty much, I mean, at the time it was very negatively received by a lot of people just because of its dissimilarity with the first one.
Crazy to me to think about that.
Kind of like, what people were expecting was a whole full another adventure with Solid Snake, complete, another kind of Shadow Moses incident. But apparently that didn't interest Mr. Kojima.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty cool that essentially this is what I would call a masterpiece of subversive fiction.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, wow.
Where you are kind of not only exploring the idea of a sequel and what that means, but what a video game means and what, your relationship to it as a player.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much stuff to talk about. Extremely ahead of its time, as we mentioned. Can't overstate. There's a lot of gripes about the directions the story took, the characters they focus on. A lot of the initial advertising was, in fact, very misleading.
Mm-hmm.
And I get if you were mad about that, but I think it's cool.
That's crazy to me, because when you actually go through this game and play it, and the way they sort of are very subversive about who you're playing as, and Solid Snake, and maybe the characters you're familiar with, and their involvement in the game, I don't know how you could receive that negatively, or you were deceived in the best way possible.
Yeah,
like, I don't understand.
Well, like they created encounters and footage just for the trailers.
Okay, I understand.
Like
sure.
fake, boss battles and cutscenes and stuff like
Wow.
that. Pretty cool.
Well, it's one of those things that takes time to sink in.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's that's why the game has aged very well,
Mhm.
but was very negatively received back then.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if we're free to get into spoilers yet. But I mean, there is a point in the game where things sort of shift. I'll keep it very vague for now, where it had the intended effect on me as well, where I'm like, this is bullshit. What is happening here?
Right,
And then
right.
later you find out you feeling that way at first is all part of the plan.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
sure.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that is kind of what you can expect from this episode. In terms of presentation, at least, I think, stuff we can all agree on, hopefully. It takes detail to a new level. With the improved camera, you can see and do a lot more. There's in-person aiming for the first time.
Yep.
The controls are still really weird.
Yeah.
Probably the Achilles heel of these early games for sure.
There's a lot of like pull trigger and also move
hold
button
down
to hold
the
yeah.
square button and then
Ugh.
release it when you're ready to fire.
There's a lot.
Um,
Yeah.
2001, admittedly, but I feel like there was just a better way to do it.
The action's rough.
It depends. I mean, because I guess essentially that's not the emphasis of the game, so sure. But this is also where they introduced the tranquilizer gun for the first
Yep.
time,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of encouraging a non-lethal play style, which is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
As a twist on things. Can we talk about sort of the pros and cons here? Because I feel like this may have been contentious at the time.
You're talking the gameplay in general, or contentious in what way?
Just the tranquilizer gun at all being used in, because you essentially it's such a, you can dispatch a guard, you know, like that, like the pull of a trigger, like you can aim it pretty much spot on.
Right.
I just like, I think it's worth it. Personally.
Yeah, sure.
And you can do so without having the guilt of killing an enemy in a stealth game. Because
Right.
typically what you want to do is try to get through and kill as few people as possible.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the mantra being you want to sneak past your enemies as opposed to gunning them down.
Right.
And just avoid detection, really.
And they will wake up after a certain amount
Yeah.
of time that depends on your difficulty. And that kind of, it changes the math of everything, including the guard sight lines, which I thought was kind of unique. I just think it, because I could see at the time being like, oh, well, this just makes it easy. It trivializes the guard pattern. So you don't necessarily have to sneak by them. You just temporarily incapacitate them. Kind of a cool, you know, twist on the gameplay there. This is kind of the first in all sections of this game. I noticed that the guards are very vigorous about checking in with each other. Like if you take out a couple in such a fashion where you put them to sleep or whatever, after like a minute or two, there'll be a radio call from their commander being like, "What's going on? Why are you answering?" And then they'll send people to investigate. Like, you know, just a nice improvement on the, you know, the foundation of the original in that respect. A lot of kind of quality of life stuff there. They do improve the menus a lot in this one. There's kind of quick equipping, and you can organize, you know, your items by category. Stuff like that.
Exactly.
I think maybe we should just get right into it. Unless you guys have anything else to add about the controls or presentation.
Sure. I mean, what I'd actually like to add, you and I were actually discussing this years ago when I was playing this for the first time, how there are a lot of similarities between Metal Gear Solid 2 and other Konami games of the time in terms of how this game is laid out.
Yeah.
What I really appreciated about this game was it felt more, I'm going to compare it directly to like their Silent Hill franchise, where there are locked doors and keys, and you're slowly uncovering a base and you're slowly getting deeper into it through use of, like, you know, unlockables, almost like, I don't want to say
cards.
Metroidvania X, but you're sort of making your way through, and it feels a little bit more like an adventure game to me in a very positive way. But it has a lot of direct links to horror games at that time, which was, I didn't really expect that when I played this.
No, and it is kind of a scary game at points.
Yes, and for sure.
So I would, I'd like to get into it here. Game starts out very, very cinematically across everyone's favorite bridge, the George Washington in New York, for the Hudson. It's set in 2007. The original was in 2005. And so basically you are regaining control of Solid Snake as he jumps onto a tanker crossing through that he believes has the new Metal Gear on it. So essentially, you're operating as a member of an NGO called Philanthropy, and they're basically just like an anti-Metal Gear company. And so essentially, when you're starting out, he doesn't have any proper weapons, right? Because it's crewed by the U.S. Marine Corps, and he's not trying to start any shit. And as this is happening, Ocelot appears along with Sergei Gerlukovich, who is the head of a Russian, I think, mercenary outfit that were displaced by the Cold War. Including that is his daughter, Olga, who is the first boss fight. You can pull off some pretty cool stuff in this for, you know, exploiting like the new first-person aiming and stuff. You can kind of like... she shines a light in your face and you can be proactive and shoot it out, I believe. That kind of thing. And essentially it's a very kind of compared to, it's another gunfight like the Ocelot one in the first game, but it's very kind of maybe not what people were expecting in terms of grandeur. It's very like, oh, this is kind of interesting. You're fighting this pregnant woman on a boat. Okay.
But like they don't let you use a real gun.
Right.
So the game doesn't allow you to kill a pregnant woman. Like you have to use the trank.
It's the trank.
Which is nice.
Yeah. And
thoughtful.
Yeah, there's a lot of moments in this game where if you do something like weird or fucked up, like somebody will call you and just call you like what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Boss, you killed a child. Amazing. Mission complete. That right there is why you're the best, boss.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. That's for 3 episodes from now. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Back to MGS2.
Yeah, I'm just so delirious it doesn't matter. It's pretty cool. I like that. I mean, it's a cool intro. It's very very picturesque. It's in the rain. You know, the rain looks terrific. You're seeing it kind of bounce up off the deck. There's actually our friend Drew informed me of this. The way they achieve the reflection of when you're walking across the desk is there's a real-time version of Snake that's upside down.
Got it.
Who's running, underneath you. Pretty revolutionary for the time. And you kind of have like particle effects of it coming off him as well.
Because the rain exists as part of the environment. So because recently, because they just released a port of San Andreas for the Xbox, and the rain effects in that game are dog shit. Because what games back then used to do were in that game, the rain is just sort of an overlay. It's like a GIF that it just displays. Because what happens in that game is you'll be driving, but the rain won't like move past you. You just see a picture of rain like, just stationary.
Oh yeah.
Right. So, but in this game, they managed to integrate it as part of the environment. So it's not just like an overlay.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually there.
Yeah.
Which is technically very impressive considering what
It was
what
that
year
important
this game came out.
Yeah, exactly.
And like you see it when you look out the windows, you see it kind of ways, however you describe that, kind of slowly pouring down and everything. Like it's just the attention to detail is there. To say nothing of the ice cubes that you can knock over, and they will melt at differing speeds depending on how close to each other they are. That's the level that we're operating.
It's kind of minutia we're operating with
this
here.
point.
Yeah.
That was important to him in 2001, which is insane to me. Do you guys enjoyed playing this part, right? Like, it's
Of course.
cool.
The tanker mission.
Yeah. It's kind of just slowly getting you back into the world, throwing you some new shit.
It's giving you what you want, which is to play as Solid Snake.
Right?
Yeah.
He looks great. And as you get sort of into the bowels of the ship, you get into a very interesting and unique sneaking section where you have to sneak by a whole platoon of Marines. And it's so cool because ordinarily your Soliton radar, you're watching for the little guard cone of vision. And in this, there's like 40 of them in a room.
Yep.
And they are watching a video or a speech that's being conducted in the front of the boat. And periodically, they will be given reasons to turn. And like he'll run exercises with them, like, oh, you guys look tired. How about we do some exercise? Like, turn left. And then they all turn left at the same time. And so what I found so interesting is that there's a couple ways you can get through it, but if you rely too much on the one way, then you get punished. So this is the first time I tried sneaking through the ducts, and if you can get through one room like that, but the next one of the soldiers drops his magazine into the grate, and if you walk underneath there, he'll be so preoccupied with it that he'll spot you. Pretty cool. Because it's just trying to like emphasize like, all right, well, that might not necessarily work the next time, etc. And you can click the projector so they're facing the opposite direction, and get by them and everything.
So there's a lot of choice. There's a lot of ways to get it done.
Yeah, that's kind of the philosophy of this particular game, is that there's a bunch of different ways to get through it. And this is kind of the climax of this chapter where Ocelot appears and he interrupts everything in the middle of you taking some photos of the new Metal Gear called Ray and uploading them to Otacon. And it's so funny that this is like, I feel like it was just maybe to teach you the first person controls.
Probably.
Like, just so you're clear on how to aim and everything.
It's a glorified tutorial.
Pretty cool. I feel like I'm saying that a lot, but it's just true. It's pretty cool. And this is where it all goes to shit. So basically, you have been lured out there by Ocelot to be framed for he's going to steal the Metal Gear, kills everyone else involved, including Gerlukovich and the Marine Corps colonel or whatever. And it kind of just like it leaves you hanging there where Metal Gear escapes. Ocelot is talking to someone named Mr. President. We don't know who that is yet. And the game fades to black, right?
But before we get to the next chapter, can we talk about the elephant in the room?
What's that?
Liquid's arm.
So this is the point where I forgot that this didn't happen. I thought this happened later, I guess. Before absconding with Metal Gear, Revolver Ocelot has replaced his missing arm with one of Liquid's, and it seemingly takes control of his mind, and he starts talking with the old voice actor's voice. It's
bizarre.
It's one of the first things in this series that it's just I don't have an answer for.
Yep.
It's just such a fucking
I don't know
crazy
what to say.
twist.
I as much as I love this game, I just can't get past this one. Like it's the most unforgivably stupid thing.
Yeah,
and possibly the whole franchise.
But I feel like so it's so funny because he definitely, I think he's on the record. Hideo Kojima is on the record of saying he regrets killing Liquid. Right?
Clearly, yeah.
But he died in such an easy way for them to bring him back. It was just a heart attack. It wasn't like he got thrown in a fucking meat grinder.
Yeah. Exactly. And because it's like the way it's delivered is the worst part too. Because it's like so quick where like Ocelot's talking to Snake and then all of a sudden he starts like convulsing and then his voice changes to Liquid's voice actor.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's right, Snake, I live on through this arm. And then it zooms in on Snake's face really quickly, just goes, Liquid's arm. And that's that is all the information we get. Maybe if they had like revealed it more slowly, but it's like, I just have such a hard time suspending my disbelief at the notion that like Liquid's mind would exist in one of his arms to the point where if Ocelot just used it as a transplant, that it would somehow infect his brain in that way.
Listen, we're going to be here all day.
Why don't we just get to the main game?
So, I think they explain it a little bit more later, but it doesn't really matter. It's still insane. There's a lot of insane stuff that happens in this game. Yeah. It just happens. It's I think this first chapter is very clearly supposed to have happened for real. Everything happened, right? Like because later on you're not so sure what's real and what is fiction. So at this point, the game cuts to black, and you hear Colonel Campbell from the first game talking to Snake, and it's kind of a very similar setup as to when you were infiltrating Shadow Moses underwater. There's kind of similar imagery. And you're getting glimpses of Snake, and it doesn't look quite like Snake. And it's just kind of, he's a little spindly, and he has this weird diving mask on, and it looks like there's some blonde hair protruding from his diving mask. And eventually he takes it off to reveal a completely different person. And thank God for our audience's sake, this is the part where Snake's name changes to Raiden. Let's not use that name anymore. It'll get confusing.
Yeah, for sure. And so at this point, it's kind of, I feel like that's kind of the subversive thing we were talking about in the intro, where you play the main part of this game as Raiden.
Yeah.
You are a blonde anime character.
You said that a little like Trump. This guy Raiden. He's got blonde hair.
He's from an anime.
What happened to Solid Snake?
Oh my God!
Do you remember Solid Snake? Okay.
Oh my God.
We're gonna be here all night.
Do you remember Shadow Moses?
Shadow Moses. Listen, this is the part where our minds completely get torn in two. So Raiden is a new protagonist you know nothing about. In many ways, for clarity's sake, he is kind of supposed to be a symbolic representation of you, experiencing Solid Snake's memories secondhand. Essentially, like he's always on about like that he's prepared for this mission through VR. He's done. I've done such and such. I recreated this Shadow Moses incident and everything, and it kind of calls into question how much of this situation itself is real, because there are so many things like tropes that are exploited from the original Metal Gear Solid that are just kind of twisted a little bit and kind of in a way made to feel sort of patronizing to you or like insulting. And So basically, you arrive at this offshore facility designed to clean up the oil spilled by the tanker, supposedly, and it's called the Big Shell, and it has 2 sets of 6 hexagonal platforms that's each serve a purpose. They're pretty structurally identical, and it's cool though because I was expecting like, okay, so this is going to be very robotic, where you're just kind of going through the same room over and over again, but they're different enough, and when you get to the other side they kind of subvert it a little bit more. But basically the premise of this first chapter is that you are taking out bombs that have been planted by a terrorist group. They call themselves the Sons of Liberty, and they're actually formed up of not only the Russian army from the beginning of the game, but also a naval special forces unit called Dead Cell, who is essentially the new Foxhound. But they're even weirder and just extremely strange people. The first one who kind of, I think, shows up is Vamp. And he shows up taking out the American SEAL team that shows up trying to rescue the president. We didn't even mention that the president is kidnapped. The new president is kidnapped.
There's a lot going on at the beginning of this game.
And they are planting bombs to throw people off the scent. They've called in a bomb expert, Peter Stillman, and he assists Raiden in this part of the game. And it's kind of a good way to train you how to get around.
Yeah.
And, just like looking for these bombs, right? Vamp is the first character to appear, and he is a very bisexual vampire who drinks people's blood and can do all these sorts of supernatural abilities. And I had no idea what to make of him the first time I played this. I was like, there's some characters in the first game, right? Psycho Mantis is like, he can do some pretty incredible things, but this is just like, oh, so there's a vampire in these games now.
Like when I said in that first episode, like, hey, there's a lot of espionage and government conspiracy, but there's also a lot of like weird anime shit in these games.
Yeah,
like, we're getting there.
There's some real anime stuff going on. This is also when you meet Iroquois Pliskin, who says that he's a Navy SEAL, but if you, the audience, are paying attention, you will clearly see that it is Solid Snake. And they bring up, in these games, they have like, character and then the actor they're portrayed by. It's clearly David Hayter.
Right.
We know. And, but he doesn't reveal himself to
Is that
Raiden.
Dramatic irony where like the player knows that it's Solid Snake?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And he kind of gives you some assistance as well in the early parts of the game. And there's just kind of this dichotomy going on where you are very much obeying the orders of Colonel Campbell, who is he's giving you your direct instructions, and Snake is kind of always encouraging you to think for yourself. And are you sure that's the right thing to do, or is that what Colonel Campbell told
you're
you?
also like, there's another part of it too where you're also being contacted via radio by Rose.
Yeah.
Right? Your significant other?
Raiden's ex-girlfriend.
Ex-girlfriend, that's right.
And
I thought they were still together, weren't they? I thought they were like. I thought the whole thing was he's trying to maintain his relationship with her.
I thought they had a falling out.
I thought it was
or
like
something.
recently fallen out, right? Or something like that.
That's what I remember.
Maybe I
even
missed
though
that.
I just played this. I don't know. But in any case, it's so funny because it makes absolutely no sense for her to be involved with this.
Exactly.
And that's like kind of the 1-2 punch the game gives you later. But it's like, we met because I was an operative, but you have no field experience. Colonel, this makes no sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, man, my mind would be like really fucked. Like if they brought in like my love interest,
Is this calling you on the radio?
Yeah,
it's really
giving
strange.
you like psychological counseling and constantly kind of asking you, do you remember what April 30th means?
Yeah.
And it's so funny. There's a lot of unintentional humor that makes sense way later. So this part where you're disarming these bombs, you get a freeze spray, and it's very, very goofy. But it's used to freeze the bombs, and you have to kind of use a little meter and you're eluding guards the whole time. And I don't know, I like this part of the game a lot. I just feel like it held up a lot better than I expected to.
Yeah, I think this is the part of the game where I was kind of talking about in the beginning where this game does a good job of sort of, you have this game is more of like an exploratory, like Konami or Capcom style horror game than you would think.
Yeah.
You have card keys and doors, and there are, rooms to solve and places to go. And I feel like, disarming the bombs kind of shows you how to get around. It's almost like a glorified tutorial in a way.
Kind of encouraging you even to go backwards if something is a little too tough. You can go get the trank gun for yourself in the warehouse or something.
Yeah, and you continually get bigger and better like warehouse keys to get better and better weapons, right? And from storage lockers and stuff.
Yeah. And it's so funny because we should say that playing as Raiden is definitely, he's intentionally very kind of derpy. And I believe that Kojima's initial intention with this was to appeal to like, we got to have him as like, like an NSYNC, like boy band kind of guy to appeal to like the female demographic.
Oh my God.
I don't know. I never took that away from it.
That's what he said.
Oh, really?
So
wow.
Just keep that in mind.
I guess I'll go fuck myself.
He says a lot of
stuff. Well,
stuff.
because I always thought, and we'll get into the whole purpose of Raiden, like once we get toward like closer to the end.
Yeah.
But the whole point is that everything that made Solid Snake cool in the first game, Raiden is the opposite of this.
Yeah.
And we will find out why. We'll discuss later why this was intentional.
Snake is very much a man's man, very flirtatious in the first game with all the female comrades. And Raiden is like struggling to keep his relationship on the rails or trying to bring it back together or something. He's pretty much the antithesis in every way, very where Snake does this very kind of rough and ready role. Raiden does cartwheels. And it's so funny to imagine like Kojima's face, like if he monitored like message boards at the time, like the big smile, like ha ha, you wanted Solid Snake and I gave you this guy. And then it was this famous because I didn't mention in the first episode that Yoji Shinkawa is Kojima's longtime collaborator. He does all the character designs. His illustrations are really, really cool. And there's a really famous, I'm pretty sure this is real. I'm not 100%, but I've seen like screen caps of it. Like when we were designing Metal Gear Solid 2, Mr. Kojima said that he was going to replace Solid Snake with a very handsome young man. I thought he was kidding, but I soon realized he was serious.
He had the same reaction to Vamp.
Yes. Yeah. Then he told me about the bisexual vampire. Oh my God. What a time.
Can we talk about Fat Man?
Yeah, so Fat Man has been planting the bombs. Peter Stillman was his mentor, and he is one of the most absurd characters in this entire series, and that's saying a lot.
And that Peter Stillman character, am I remembering that was also the point in the game where there's like a 90-minute cinematic of him telling you how to dismantle the bombs? Am I crazy?
It's not 90 minutes, but it is pretty long.
It's like, I mean, I'm not overstating it by much. It's really, really long.
Yeah, and it's kind of just stuff that, like I said about the codex in the first game, it's stuff that isn't super important. It's like as you learn about their backstory and how he trained Fat Man to disarm bombs and everything. And the character of Peter Stillman is pretty poignant and tragic, but the fact that he's having this emotional crisis over Fat Man is so funny to me.
Yeah.
He's like, so Fat Man is pretty much, there's certain mirror boss battles in this game, and his kind of mirrors Vulcan Raven, where you're kind of going around and you have the crates, the shipping crates that you're navigating, and he's kind of going in circles around you and stuff. Difference is that Fat Man is this absurdly large guy who shows up wearing rollerblades.
Yeah.
He has, I think, nail polish, and he's sipping a martini.
It's time to start the party.
Yeah. I would cast Danny DeVito as this role in the movie, essentially.
Very like what Eggman-esque, very kind of Sonic the Hedgehog
comical, over the top mad bomber. And so essentially I think he's just having fun. That's his motivation, right?
Yeah.
Like initially he's part of the terrorist group. Yeah. But and
then there's that laugh, of course.
The laugh.
It's like that clip is one of the videos on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, can you describe it?
Yeah. Huh?
It just sounds like oh, you didn't hear me? I'll do the laugh again.
Like that was I didn't change that in any way.
Yeah.
Like that He laughs like that twice in a row.
It's
the second one has one fewer. I noticed that when I was making
got the
video.
details right about this crucial encounter.
It's important.
Listen, his motto is "Laugh and grow fat." The guy rules.
Okay.
So I feel like where we're at, like at this point in the episode and at this point in the plot,
Yeah.
there's a lot happening at once.
Yeah.
Like, so just so I have this straight here.
Yeah.
You have so Raiden is in Big Shell, but keep in mind the president was doing a tour of Big Shell, but then the Sons of Liberty came onto the Big Shell, but you also are trying to dismantle bombs because Fat Man placed the bombs, and then you also have to go find the president because the president got captured by the Sons of Liberty.
Correct.
Is that kind of where we are?
Yeah.
That's where, okay.
Yeah.
Are you guys following yet? Anyone listening? Because that's where there's a lot happening.
You got it perfectly correct.
Perfect.
Listen,
Let's go.
So we don't know their motivation yet, other than that Fat Man went rogue. I like his boss fight.
I do too.
I think it's fun. It's like you have to kind of freeze the bombs as he plants them, and like I defeated him non-lethally. It doesn't change the cutscene at all, but I think it's kind of cute that the last bomb is underneath him.
Yeah,
you have to move his body. And for me, I thought it was so interesting. I don't think it changes anything, but if you defeat him non-lethally, he'll just be sleeping, and like you can't wake him up or anything.
Interesting.
So that's the way it is. But yeah, so that's the part where I think it's so cool, where you get the directional microphone. They're making a little bit more use of that first-person camera.
You have the directional microphone.
He says it really weird.
And we'll get into that later.
Pays off later, I promise. You have to find was the Secretary of State?
Ames, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
And you have to use it to find. He has a pacemaker.
Yeah,
so you
that's
have to like go around and not get caught. If you have to use a disguise, and you can't get caught like listening to people's heartbeats. It's such a weird situation.
I do want to address one really cool Easter egg though. So because during that whole segment of the game, part of it, I think you zoom in with the microphone and you hit a button. And it makes Raiden say, "You must be Ames." So if there's a parrot in one of the rooms, and if you stand in front of that parrot and keep making Raiden say that, eventually the parrot will say, "You must be Ames."
Yeah.
Wow. Ames. It's really cool.
Wow.
So cool.
What a small thing.
That I neglected to mention that you meet another cyborg ninja in this game. She's the one who gives you the outfit, and there's a pretty cool part where you have to like hold up a guy. That's something else you can do in this game, and like you use his retinal scan to get into the secure area. Pretty awesome. This is kind of like you're done with Shell 1 for the most part at this point, and you get onto the bridge, and this is kind of where the game really like pops off. This is the part where the main villain reveals himself. I say villain, there's like thousands of them.
Yeah.
Solidus Snake, who is the secret third brother, who is a perfect clone of Big Boss. He has all his genes are in balance. It takes a balanced man to run the world. He was a former president of the United States, and he is leading this insurrection.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's such an action-packed series of events. Like your head is just like spinning.
Yep.
Like because Otacon comes back in this part. Solid Snake kind of formally reveals himself. I forgot to tell you Peter Stillman died.
Yeah.
I was sad about that.
Yeah.
He's a cool guy.
It was like in the process of disarming the bombs, he goes to get to help you with one, and then it explodes and kills him.
Like Fat Man outsmarted him. Like there's one,
yeah.
if you disable all of them, then another one will go off somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
No, but Solidus shows up in a Harrier jet, and this boss fight is awesome.
Yep.
I love this boss fight because he has all these different kind of weapons that you use in different kind of moves, and he can go like supersonic when he's flying at you. And it's insane to think that like a man could defeat a Harrier jet. Like it was hard enough for Solid Snake to take down a helicopter, and then you have this, and it's pretty cool. I like how he can like he uses like the backdraft of the jet. He gets really close to you and just kind of smothers you with it.
Yep.
There's a lot of kind of ways you have to adapt around like the different weapons he uses and shit. Pretty awesome. This is once you defeat him there, he gets caught in the jaws of the Metal Gear, which comes out of the water, driven by Ocelot. So he's part of this too. He's got his hands in everything. This guy. And this is kind of when you go over to Shell 2. And I like that this is kind of an abbreviated version of the first one, because it's like I said, I didn't want to like, okay, we got to go through the whole thing again. So the bomb went off here and everything is kind of cut a little short. So this is probably the low point of the game for me, because this is where you get into a lot of flooded sections. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
So the swimming controls aren't bad. I think they're actually pretty good.
Yeah.
There's a couple mines in your way, and you wind up, your objective is to rescue Otacon's sister, Emma, who is a programmer, and she is working there for some reason. And so essentially you find her. I think you have the vamp boss fight right before her. And what do you guys think about this boss fight?
You know what? I think this boss fight is fun. Is this the one where like you can't fall in the water for some reason, right?
Yeah.
This boss fight was fine, but I just think this is maybe where the dated, like kind of arcadey shooting kind of comes up against like boss, super crazy boss, and the first person controls, you're hitting so many buttons at once to pull out an assault rifle and try to do stuff. It just kind of falls apart. Yeah,
it's because he's throwing knives at you, and like they're, ideally you're shooting them out of midair, but the
controls are so like wonky. Any sort of shooting in the first 3 games is so strange.
It's hard to keep track of. It's cool that you can shoot him when he's in the water. So he's like he for whatever reason he can go in the water. I think it's some kind of microbe in there that's going to weigh you down.
I have no idea.
Or something.
Or he can disguise himself as your shadow. I thought that was pretty cool.
He can like pin your shadow to the floor.
Oh right, that's what it was. Yeah.
But you can avoid this by shooting out all the lights so you don't cast a shadow.
Okay.
So somehow he has the technology or something to pin your shadow to the floor.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean it's cool, but it doesn't really feel like you accomplish much just because he's like immortal.
Yeah.
But you do meet Emma here, who is my least favorite character in the game.
Yeah, for sure.
Pretty close to maybe the worst in the series.
Yep.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Just like they lay so many cutscenes, pointless cutscenes here. I just don't see how it relates at all to the main plot. Maybe I'm missing something, but it's very much kind of, we need to give Otacon something to do in this game.
Sure.
And his sister's here, and you get all this, and like I said before, she is very kind of prissy, and she's like, I hate water, and you have to escort her through this flooded
section. The giant swimming section where you have to like, oh my god, you have to escort? Yeah.
There's plenty to establish this. Like they go into like she had this traumatic event with Otacon in the past where like she nearly drowned or something like that, and that's why she's terrified of water. I don't know.
Essentially, she has to hold on to you as you swim through these sections, and it's incredibly annoying.
I feel like the story would have held together just fine if that wasn't in there. You know, like it's just. I'm like, okay.
Also,
I guess
she
this could be a thing.
She hates bugs, and there's a lot of like sea lice on the wall, so you have to spray them with otherwise she'll be like, I hate bugs.
Dude, it's like
it's just like it's
such a waste of time.
It takes like the insult the player mentality just a little too far for me.
Yeah,
that's where I'm thinking they went with that. Like, we're gonna make you do something really, kind of annoying.
Look, it's annoying, but it's supposed to be annoying.
But
it's like, ugh.
Like, at least it culminates with. We managed to avoid drowning. Good job. I think that makes it like kind of worth it.
Yeah,
it's like really patronizing. Oh my god, we didn't even talk about how you meet the president and he gropes you.
Oh yeah,
God, that's right. So I mean, you eventually do find the president, and he just grabs you by the.
What's the
line that he says? You're a man.
Wait, you're a man?
It's like, what the fuck?
I guess the implication is that I'm assuming this was in the wake of the Clinton allegations and thinking back to JFK, I guess, and his immediate kind of, oh, you're here to rescue me, and just goes right for your junk there.
Well, because as far as he knew, he was going to die within the next few hours. So, he probably figured, fuck it. Not that makes it okay. Not that makes it okay. I'm just saying.
It's just so weird.
I know.
But isn't it just another one of those things, kind of like, you kind of just said it. The story would have functioned just fine if he didn't grab you by the crotch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Mr. Kojima, please explain.
I know. But this is the scene where we learn about the Patriots, though, so we should probably get into that.
Yeah,
because that's a huge plot point.
That's one of my favorite cutscenes in the game. Is that he explains that, he's like, I don't have any real power. The Patriots do, and Raiden asks who they are, and he says that nobody knows, and they are kind of a shadowy collective,
like a shadow government
of,
sort of
of
thing.
individuals who govern things behind the scenes, and. Do you have anything to add about their basic concept, or?
Not really. I mean, it just it's basically just that conspiracy theory trope of like ghost government.
Yeah, shadow government
right.
shit.
So like the people, it's like the president. It was never really the one in charge.
Right.
So what's that what the fuck? What's that Bill Hicks quote where like? His theory about after every election they take the new president elected into a theater and they like show slideshows of like past presidents being murdered and then they go,
well, he said,
any questions?
Well, he's like, it's the Kennedy assassination from an angle you've never seen before.
Yeah, exactly. So they're essentially the Illuminati, I guess.
Yeah,
I guess.
And what I thought was so shocking is that like Ocelot shoots and kills the president in this moment, and I'm like, I feel like for 2001 that was pretty racy to show that in like a kid's video game or whatever. Like pretty
kind of treated the president like just like a minor character. You know what I mean? Just boop dead.
Well, it's so funny that he's like clearly, I'm assuming Solidus was known as George Sears during his tenure, was much more popular, and then like in the wake of that, this guy is kind of like a lame duck or whatever. And pretty cool dichotomy between the characters there. But then when you rescue Emma, she is kind of writing a virus, I guess, and this is kind of when it reveals the true nature of Big Shell to you, is that there was no oil spill. It was all a cover-up. And actually underneath is the real new Metal Gear. And I think it's cool that they make you think it's just another mech. And then it's actually a submersible fortress armed with several other Metal Gears. And the whole point of it is to control the internet.
Right.
And so this is where it like you just keep pulling at the thread and it just keeps getting
it gets more fucked
and
up.
deeper.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's pretty cool how they portray that, because it seems so perfect at first, and then you start digging into the underbelly of what's going on and all this stuff. And so she is trying to write a virus to corrupt it or something and make it non-functional, and Solidus's aim is to take control of it and fire a nuclear missile into the low atmosphere, which will trigger an EMP pulse, because that's what nukes do, and it will cut Manhattan from the grid essentially, and he will take over Manhattan and make it the new outer heaven, because George Sears was the president and was dissatisfied that he didn't hold any real power essentially. So it's just another trip, and it's so funny because I think that this character is, he was behind the events of the first game, but he's still clear, like he's portrayed very pathetically to me anyway. Like you can tell that he's not going to succeed, and you can tell that he is just another like patsy essentially. Yeah. And I think that's a kind of a cool, like this
he's almost
guy,
like a sub villain, but thinks he's the shit.
He's exactly. Yeah. And he is also kind of he's got some cyborg shit going on himself.
Yep.
And he has high frequency katanas that are like lightsabers, kind of, I guess. And we didn't even talk about Fortune.
Oh my god! Yeah, there's so much crazy.
I was going to correct you earlier. I think she's the first member of Dead Cell that appears, not Vamp.
Got it.
Yeah.
And so basically, she is the daughter of the Marine commander in the opening chapter, and she wants revenge against Solid Snake because she thinks Snake killed her father.
Sure, yeah.
And her big thing is that she cannot be killed by, like, no matter how many times people try to shoot her or if they throw a grenade at her and it backfires. A dud. And so for whatever reason, nothing can, you have a little boss fight with her. And she has a tiny little health bar, but no matter what you do, you
have to wait for that one. You have to wait for the elevator to arrive. You have to wait it out. It's that one, right?
It gets pretty tense, a little hairy because she's got the rail gun that she's trying to shoot at you. Essentially, like this is kind of setting up the end game here. With this last little bit where you're escorting Emma is like the sniper part. Do you guys have any memories of this?
I remember like having to do it over and over and over because I either was not seeing one of the drone. I didn't understand why I kept getting a game over. But I thought it was fine. Like what I really liked in this game was you got a lot of varied gameplay, but I didn't find it as intrusive as maybe later entries where the gameplay just didn't align with how the game functions. I kind of liked how, you have your little tutorial in the beginning, and then when you get to Big Shell, it's kind of like a classic horror game where there are keys and doors, and then you get out to a giant sniper section, and there's enough variation here to kind of keep you going. Yeah. Even though this part just kind of irritated me because I didn't understand how to complete it, but
there's a lot of,
liked
mines that you need to see with like the thermal goggles.
Exactly.
And stuff.
Yep.
Something that I do like about it though is that they give you a never-ending supply of ammo and drugs.
Yes.
So you can just keep going.
You can just keep firing.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember. Does this game still have the sway with the sniper rifle?
It's less pronounced.
Okay. Yeah.
But you do have to like take Pentasma or whatever to focus. But it's so fitting that like everything in this game is such a fuck you to the player, where it's like you go through all this trouble and take out the guards and mines and drones and all that stuff, and even so she still dies. She gets stabbed by a vamp.
Yeah.
And I think you or Snake shoots him in the head and he disappears, right?
Yep.
And so she essentially dies, and it's like this really, really wrung out sequence where Otacon is really broken up about it, and it's just kind of like
his crying scene is one of the most wince-worthy moments in the game, I think.
Yeah.
which brings me to
so funny.
I mean, I won't spend too much time on this, but this brings me to why I think overall the voice acting in MGS1 was better. Because like there's the scene with like Fortune crying at the beginning. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's just
it's on purpose, but it's tough to take either way.
I don't know if it's on purpose. I think it's just poor delivery. Like the crying scenes just aren't good in this game.
Well, I mean, I think the important thing about that interaction with Emma is she doesn't die right away.
Right.
She's able to upload that virus partially before she dies.
Right. So after that, they do the Konami code with the handshake. Do you know about that?
No.
They replicate the up, down, down.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
That's cute.
But you are betrayed by Solid Snake to the ninja, who turns out to be Olga from the beginning. Right?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on here.
And she is essentially doing all this for her child, who's been abducted by the Patriots. So at this point, Raiden is taken captive.
Her kid was abducted by Bill Belichick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Raiden, damn the Patriots.
Yeah.
Raiden is taken captive, much like you were in the first game, right? And there's a torture sequence, but it's like not even one. And it's so interesting because this is where the game really changes.
Yes.
And it starts to kind of, I'm going to invoke there's a brilliant essay about this called Driving Off the Map. You should check it out if you have any interest. It's pretty easy to find. Driving Off the Map MGS2. We'll probably link it in the episode description or whatever. But they make a lot of comparisons here about how Raiden and the player are pretty, like, he'll do whatever you say in the beginning of the game, and then as it goes on, he has more and more agency as a character. So like in the beginning, like you can like shoot seagulls, even though like it's something that would be out of character for him. And Rosemary will be like, how can you do that? Like, and so as it goes on, you start to, so Raiden is naked in this part, right? And he's completely powerless, and you're running around naked, and he will at all costs preserve like his modesty. He's always got his hands in front of his junk, and no matter what you do, so this is preventing you from attacking or doing anything else because what matters to him is more important.
Yep.
And I think that's so cool. And this is really like, this is when you know you're fucked, right? You open up the map, and there is I had to look up what exactly this was. It's like an etching of like a turtle in the place where you would normally have your area map. It's an etching of a turtle with some like elephants on it and a snake coiled around the bottom. And what I learned was that this is a etching of a Hindu cosmogram, and it's analogous for how the world works, like the different layers of the world. So it's essentially like I'm assuming drawing a comparison with how you're going down the rabbit hole in this game.
Of course.
You know
like,
what I mean?
That's also the point in the game where, you correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the game starts to get kind of fucked up. You said, what the fuck is going on?
This is where reality collapses.
Yeah, exactly.
So essentially, you are walking around in Arsenal gear, which is the new Metal Gear, in the bowels of it. I guess it kind of looks like a turtle, so it makes sense. And you're just walking around naked, trying to avoid these very high,
which is inherently
guards.
bizarre. Like you're just you're trying to play a stealth game completely fucking nude.
Yeah,
which is really weird.
And you start to get really weird codec calls from your contacts.
So, do you mind if I interrupt you?
Go ahead.
This is the point in the game where, like, I didn't play Metal Gear Solid 2 when it came out. I only played it like a few years ago.
Me too.
And for me, like, up until this point, the game is fine. It's kind of dated. There's a lot of weird characters. This game is fucking bizarre. But when I started getting the weird radio transmissions, I said, wait a minute. What the fuck's going on in this game? Like, what did you say? Like, reality kind of starts to collapse?
Yes.
And who is, like, is this real? Like, are these transmissions fake? Like, what is like, I think Campbell starts saying really weird shit to you that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Oh, there's a lot. There's a lot of really
let's
iconic
go through
ones.
some of them.
Oh, yeah. Raiden. The first one is Raiden. You must continue your mission, and with some crackle
blips
in, there.
in it.
Right,
yeah.
And then the next one is Raiden. Turn the game console off right now. What did you say? The mission is a failure. Cut the power right now.
I heard people, like, when that came out when they were kids, they actually did it.
Yeah.
Well, isn't you also get a game over screen?
That must have been
fake game over.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's later on.
That's way later when things get really
but it says fission mailed though if you look closely.
Yes.
Not mission failed.
Like, it makes you think even though you haven't died or anything like that, it just like it shrinks your screen down,
and you're still in control.
Yeah. You just got to roll through it.
And
what are some of the other things he says?
Let's see. Well, there's the most iconic one, which is I'll see if I can remember it verbatim. I hear it's amazing when the purple stuffed worm in Flapjaw Space does a raw blink on Harry Carey Rock. I need scissors. 61. But the one little thing about that I noticed was it's in the subtitle. It's spelled Harakiri Rock, but he says Harry Carey.
He's a Cubs fan.
Is that also the moment when the picture of Campbell turns into like a skeleton photo?
It flashes back and forth.
It's that, and you finally see him from different angles. Like there's one where like he's really up close.
Yeah,
which is the funniest one.
He's directly facing you instead of Raiden.
And then there's one where his back is faced to you, and it's just his side profile. Because for most of the game he's you see it from like a diagonal angle. But in this he's like turning around and shit.
And really, like, the point of this is like you really start like understanding like you haven't been talking to the real Campbell the whole time.
Yeah.
It pulls one of those. Games have done that over the course of gaming history. Sort of like the unreliable narrator has kind of come to light here.
But to a whole new level, because you're seeing footage of like the original Metal Gear, and he's talking about your relationship with Rose, and now she's saying weird shit.
Yep. And you're like, what the fuck?
I have to bring up my favorites this time, which was something I've always liked is when he's like, something weird happened to me when I was driving home last night. I was going down my normal road and an orange light appeared out of the sky, and all of a sudden I was at home. What do you think happened to me? Yeah. It's just like a weird story your coworker would tell me.
Really strange.
I'm sorry, I wasn't going to bring this up, but I saw a guy with what was it? What was the quote? The guy with Rosemary.
It he's like how do I put it? They were intimate.
Yeah,
and it's very much just incoherent, like babble. Like just feels like text to speech, like insanity.
Yeah.
Like at a certain point, your radar is replaced with like a home video of like a sleeping Japanese woman. Yeah, she wakes up and like laughs at you. That was like I started laughing. Really
I also thought this is the point. If we're getting back to the story here, this is the point where this game to me was kind of scary.
Oh yeah,
because keep in mind you're also like you kind of talked about going down the rabbit hole. This is when you started like on top of Big Shell, and now you're kind of going farther down and down into the shell. And I didn't realize like it's Emma's virus that's fucking everything up.
Yeah.
I was like, what is going on here?
But
we should continue.
I think the scariest interruption is the one where he chimes in and starts speaking Japanese really fast.
Yes.
If I could imitate it, I would, but it's horrifying.
I think it's the names of like subway stops.
I can't do it.
They keep calling you over and over again. And it's actually kind of cool you mentioned that, because the names of the areas are like descending colon and like rectum and stuff. Yeah. You're just going down the tubes.
Yes.
And so essentially it's revealed that the kernel was a figment of your imagination created by the AI.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole sort of game has been an exercise in how much they can influence events and manufacture events.
Mm-hmm.
And that alone is like, I don't think I've ever seen that ever,
me either.
Anywhere.
Like, I honestly wish I could erase my memory so I could experience that for the first time again.
Oh, me too.
Like,
it was scary, dude.
Yeah, that like blew my mind to shreds in like a way that a game never has.
Mm-hmm.
And back to the voice acting, what I will say, the Colonel, who plays the Colonel, I forget his name. It doesn't matter.
Paul Eiding.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
His performance in this is brilliant, because because if you compare his performance in the first game to this one, in the first game he's clearly much more lifelike. He sounds like a real person. In this, he sounds more robotic.
But enough not to tip their hand.
Exactly, because it's like I remember I tried getting my little brother to play these games, and then when it came down to this one, he's like, I don't really like the way people talk in this game compared to the first one, and like I don't really like Ryan at all, and it's like it's so hard to explain like this is all part of the plan.
You have to see it.
Like the game, it's designed to make you like feel fishy at first and make you sort of like not even like the game in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so hard to like explain that to somebody and have them not say, yeah, right.
Yeah, why should I play it?
The game probably just sucks. It's like, but if you get any further into detail, like you'll spoil it for them.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
But I mean, continuing on, like after you get through the naked section, I believe that's when you actually meet
and
up.
That's so cool too, because then you kind of, it's also like Raiden being reborn and everything, and it's so cool because it has all these symbolic undertones, and you're given a sword by Snake.
So I mean, at the end of the naked section, Snake has all your gear.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like revealed that like it's a lot of like double agent sort of stuff where it looked
I had to sell you out to get access to
exactly
our
like
gear.
It looks like he betrayed you, but that's not true.
Right.
There's actually a funny Easter egg when Snake like gives you the sword and gives you your gear. Do you guys know you can kill him, but then you just can't continue the game? You ever done that?
Oh,
No.
really?
Because he does this thing where he says, "Hey, why don't you practice swinging the sword?" There's like that weird moment where you have to try all the swings or you can't continue.
Yeah.
If you hit him, you kill him, and you get like an audio diary or something. It's really strange.
Oh, wow.
That's so funny.
But you obviously can't continue.
Yeah, but the sword definitely symbolizes Raiden finally coming into his own, and as opposed to him just vying to be exactly like
the
Solid
controls
Snake the
feel
whole
so
time.
much more natural.
Yeah.
Than the accepting him in the third person, instead of like trying to pretend that you're Snake through the first person, etc.
Back to the way Raiden is essentially you, like he represents the player. Because once you find out that the events of the game are just an AI simulation, the whole time, it was in large part in service of trying to groom Raiden into a soldier as capable as Solid Snake by mirroring the events of Shadow Moses.
Yeah.
So you spend the whole game wishing you were Solid Snake because you don't like Raiden as much, but it turns out that is exactly what the Patriots wanted. So you bought into their game by feeling that way at first, and which was part of the whole plan of why in the promotional material they never showed Raiden. So when it came down to it, and you realized that he was going to be the main protagonist for the rest of the game, many people felt outraged. They just spent the whole game wishing they were Snake, which is exactly
You buy in.
It is exactly what the Patriots wanted. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
It breaks so many walls. It's just like I've never seen anything do it before.
Did you want to get down to like maybe towards the end of the story? That's kind of where we are, right?
Yeah. No, I mean you're you fight alongside Snake a little bit, and like I said, the sword controls excellently. It's so many fun sequences, and then you get into another really trippy part where you have to fight a bunch of Metal Gear Rays.
This is the boss fight where like I thought it was really cool, but my first like couple of tries, like I kept like reloading the game because I didn't understand what to do.
Yeah.
I think you're supposed to just keep killing them, and then it triggers a cutscene where it stops. It's kind of like survive.
Depending on your difficulty, I think if you do it on the
more.
hardest one, you have to fight all of them, and then it's like lower depending on if you're lower.
It's once you get into like a certain rhythm with it, it becomes easier than the vamp fight.
Yeah, exactly.
It seems impossible at first, and honestly, like it was a little hard for me to suspend my disbelief in that moment because it's like there's no way like one guy takes out all those giant mechs.
Gears.
Yeah,
it's like one of the most impressive things anyone's ever done.
Yeah. Like when you consider like how much Solid Snake struggled to take out that one in the first game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's really like, you know, it's kind of making you like earn a little respect for Raiden. I guess.
Yeah.
Like this guy's actually pretty cool.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I think it's supposed to take place on the outer shell of Arsenal Gear, but
Yes.
it looks really like VR-ish.
Yeah.
It looks like kind of like you're like it's very gamey. It's a very odd section.
It's kind of disorienting because like you if I'm thinking about the whole game, you start outside, you're going down big shell, but now you're fighting these like huge, what are they called, rays?
Yeah.
But like I believe they're also like aren't they coming out of water? And it was
I think
very
they're like perched on the side.
It was
or
very
something.
disorienting, like where you actually
Spatially,
are.
yeah.
And it's probably on purpose.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it's that, and part of it's also, we should mention, this came out very close to 9/11.
Yeah.
And it mirrors a lot of imagery, or it would, had they not amended it. I think all that footage is long gone. It's never surfaced. But essentially, like getting into the very end of the game here, there's a lot of speeches by the villains about how it was all like their, you know.
I really want to talk about this scene when you're on top of Arsenal Gear,
Yeah.
and then all the characters are there except Vamp, I think.
Yep.
And it's just like a hilariously long string of like double crossings, and actually it was me the whole time.
Yeah.
So the first one is, it's Solidus talking to Fortune, and just to boil it down, he's like, "You didn't think you were in control this whole time, did you, Fortune?" And then it cuts to like one of those slideshow cutscenes where he explains it all. And then immediately after that, you have Ocelot in Metal Gear Ray, and he's like, "You didn't think you were really in control, did you, Solidus?" And it goes into another one of those slideshow cutscenes that count as the previous one. And then after that, fucking Liquid's arm awakens, and he's like, "I was in control the whole time." It's just like, okay,
really like one of those, I can't tell how serious this was supposed to come off moments.
No, I have no idea.
It's bonkers. Fortune and Olga are killed in this cutscene, just like their fathers, very soon after the other. And this is where Solid Snake goes after Liquid, and you're stuck fighting Solidus. And this is like one of my favorite final bosses, like in any game, because it's so. Basically, they set you up with one last phone call between you and the Colonel AI and your fake girlfriend, right?
My favorite scene in the whole series.
And it's been very, very lauded for its prescience, because, Derek, why don't you put it into your own words?
They talk about censoring the net and sort of controlling content. Like unnecessary information must be filtered out to stimulate the evolution of the species, I think is one of the quotes. Just convenient half-truths being circulated at an alarming rate, where to the point where like nobody is invalidated, but nobody is right, which is basically Facebook in a nutshell.
What happened?
Yeah, like Facebook and YouTube comment sections are that in a nutshell.
And what I think is so impressive is, like, when did this game come out? 2001.
So
Which means
that concept was very ahead of its time.
Which means it was made when? 99, 2000.
Yep.
Right.
That's crazy.
Exactly.
Yep.
I mean, just kind of predicting, and he's pretty famous for this, but predicting the paths along which society will develop. And this is like a concern that we are only dealing with the ramifications of now. And it's crazy to me. And they're basically contesting your free will, you know, how much of you is you and how much is built on what you've been told and taught, grown up, raised to believe, etc. And it's such a fascinating thing, because no matter what, you have to fight Solidus. And it's like, because even though every part of your life, every part of your conflict with this man has been manufactured, he's still a dick.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, what am I gonna do? Not fight him? He killed my parents.
You have a one-on-one sword fight.
And then we forgot to mention that if Raiden dies, Olga's child dies.
Right.
So he has no choice.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like he wants to disobey the Patriots, just on principle. Like I'm through doing what I'm told, but oh really? Aren't you forgetting something? And then it flashes back to, if you die, my child dies.
Right.
Damn.
Right. There's a part where they're kind of mocking you with like he's like, what do you mean? And Rose just goes, you're the best, Jack. You did it all by yourself. And he's like, oh,
I know. Yeah. So you see, you're the perfect representative of the masses we need to protect.
Yeah. It gets very full anime villain, but it makes perfect sense. And I really like this boss fight. Mm-hmm. I think it's a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. It didn't annoy me. It's very climactic, and at a certain point, you just slice his spine open, and it's like very, very gnar. Yeah, it's just like a lot more violent than I was expecting. Mm-hmm. And you're fighting on the roof of Federal Hall, which is fascinating. And then you have kind of this whole. So much about it is like the exploitation of imagery and corrupting it to make your own, corrupting like the image of Metal Gear Solid 1 and like twisting it and stuff. And you think about how Solidus and his revolution were based on like the founding fathers and invoking George Washington, Sons of Liberty. They have the "Don't Tread on Me" snake on all their flags. Yeah, snakes. And it's like, it's very kind of, to me, reminiscent of like the Tea Party. Yeah. like we're gonna make it back the way it was and take control back and everything. Yeah, gross. And it's so ahead of its time.
Yeah, right. But one thing I do want to mention though, so you the final codec conversation you have with the AI kernel. My last sort of like watch through of the game movie. It's like you realize Solidus is still standing there. Like, you might, how nice of him to wait for you to finish this conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
It's more codec, like temporal weirdness.
I know. And that's the other thing too. So when it comes to the way codec conversations work in this game, there's a lot of moments where they're like, we need to switch to nano communication so they can't listen in. And clearly that was done to save the animators the trouble of having to animate every last conversation. But it's like, you're still talking out loud, aren't you, when you're having those conversations? Yeah. So
are you transmitting thoughts?
I know. I really thought about that, and I don't know. It's one of those things you just have to sort of look the other way for. Yeah. It's like, are they communicating telepathically? Like, what's the difference between just talking face to face or and talking via the codec?
I don't know, man. Yeah. I pretty much at this point, I had just kind of met the game on its own terms. Like, that was just an insane experience. Solidus is killed. And it's so weird because they avoid a lot of 9/11 imagery where they're going to have this very extended sequence where Arsenal gear crashes into the financial district of New York. Comes out a couple months after 9/11, kind of dicey imagery, take a lot of that out. But so that's how you wind up on Federal Hall in front of George Washington Bridge, all connected. And essentially, it's weird because there's no crowds or people running around, and then they just sort of fade in. Yep. And it's like, I feel like that was probably to be sensitive about the imagery, but it totally works in the game's favor. It looks more
dreamlike.
Yeah, completely. And you're kind of given this last like speech with Snake, and he kind of reiterates like the main theme of the game, which is to form your own opinions and identity, and just kind of like history and culture and art is a part of everyone's life, and it's all kind of built on what's come before. And there's a really cool scene where you can input like your own name at the beginning, and Raiden will rip off his dog tags with that name on it and toss it away. I put George Costanza on it this time.
Nice.
Isn't this the same cutscene where you see Rose, right?
She shows up, and basically the whole thing is like April 30th was the day Raiden met her. And there's something else that I thought was really cool is there's still these dichotomies between Raiden and Snake coming up, where at certain points they talk about King Kong and Godzilla. Yeah. And so Raiden is King Kong, where he was taken from, they reveal that he was taken from his home in Africa and brought back, and Godzilla was kind of like a created monster like Snake. Some Japanese heritage there too. Pretty amazing stuff, just top to bottom. Like, everything has to make sense and have a point. Yeah. And it's so well put together.
This game is wild. I mean, we could talk about this for hours, so maybe we should wrap here and maybe give a couple of final thoughts, final sentences.
Yeah.
I think like for me, because I'll say it again, I didn't play this in 2001. I played it in like 2017. I think as soon as you kind of get down into Big Shell and these radio transmissions get odd, I'm like, this game's kind of scary.
Yeah.
And when I got to the end and I said, holy crap, so there's like the Sons of Liberty and there's the Patriots and there's a shadow government and then Solidus didn't like the Patriots, but he's also bad. I'm like, holy shit, there's a lot going on here. But what I came away from this game was like, this game was so far ahead of its time. Like, you're talking like what, VR, AI, like you brought up YouTube comments and like Facebook and those kind of spheres.
Like, nobody is invalidated, but nobody is right. Like,
dude,
if you read any internet comment thread about like, having to do with politics, like, no one knows what the fuck they're talking about.
It's that. And I think what's even like crazy to me too, we played a localized version of that.
Right.
This is originally in Japanese.
They somehow made it work for the most part.
I've wanted to say this for years. I want to give like a small round of applause to the localization team for doing such a good job with such a complicated story.
Yeah, for sure.
I wanted that on record forever. Like, this is probably a game story for me. It's my favorite game story that is not like sad and miserable, even though inherently I guess it is in a way. But that's really all I have to say. Do you guys want to have a quick sentence before we cut this off here?
Yeah, I mean, it is also very impressive how well the story holds up under scrutiny.
Yes.
Because you would think like with a story so unbelievably convoluted, it'd be full of like plot holes and contradictions, but there really aren't any. Like,
I know
it all holds. It's pretty airtight. It just at some moments it is a little hard to suspend one's disbelief. Like back to that scene on top of Arsenal Gear with the string of like double crossings. It's like, yeah, like nothing. There aren't any things that sort of contradict each other, but it's like, just imagine if anything ever in real life went as exactly according to plan as any of their plans. If I could craft such intricate plans and predict human behavior so accurately and have it all executed so flawlessly, I would be unstoppable. It of course works the best at the end when you talk to when you find out the Patriots were just the AI the whole time. Like, I'm more willing to believe that a hyper advanced AI could make that all happen.
Mm-hmm. So, for sure.
Like, but I just want to make sure we're clear on that. By the way, you find out that the Patriots aren't actually people; they were just an AI system the entire time.
And then the real Patriots were dead for hundreds of years.
Right.
Yeah.
And
pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Beppe, do you have any one final sentence? I mean, this is an important game for you.
No, yeah. I mean, I only played this for the first time in 2013, but I think it's very remarkable. I would say maybe in the running for most important video game ever, like in terms of maybe not impact, but in terms of what it says about the medium as a whole. So I didn't get into our rankings as we in our last episode. I probably would give the original Metal Gear Solid an 8 after all this time, and I would give this one a 10.
This is your perfect game.
I'm giving it a 10. If this isn't a 10, 10s don't exist.
I mean, I tend to grade things in letters. I mean, for me, it's got to be one of those games where I think the original Metal Gear is like a B. Sorry, Metal Gear Solid, excuse me.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of those games where, depending on what day you catch me, it's an A or an A minus.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't really critiqued any of these games yet. In my personal view, like, these games are stealth games, and we haven't talked about stealth at all. We're going way too long, so I won't talk about it. But like, it's very exploitable. You can kind of truck your way through this game and not really stealth it at many points. But it almost doesn't matter to me because of how fucking interesting this game is. I don't care.
Oh yeah.
Like, I don't care like how much I exploited just running through the halls of this game. It's probably an A or an A minus for me. Derek, why don't you close us with a grade for Metal Gear Solid 2?
Jeez.
Is it an A for you?
Because I mean, it's not perfect. Like there's still moments in that game that make me wince.
Yeah, sure.
Like, the Fortune crying scene, Otacon crying scene, and the one you have with Rose, like after the torture scene, that kind of happens. Those are all pretty brutal. I'd say the acting is slightly not as good on the whole as MGS1, and the bosses aren't as likable. They're not bad, but I
give us a grade.
All right, to summarize before I give my grade. So the MGS1, there's really nothing in it that I don't like. but the good things about MGS2 on the whole elevated above MGS1 for me.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'd say MGS1.
What makes them
I'd
think they
give,
can get that much?
A-.
There was a government-sponsored tour going on at the Big Shell that day.
A+ or S.
Yeah, S tier.
Yes.
Anyway, that's a good way to end it. So I mean, we can talk about Metal Gear Solid 2 for hours, but we won't. So next time we're going to talk about Metal Gear Solid 3. Thank you guys. So for our audience, I hope you're still with us because there's a lot of shit.
What a thrill!
Oh my god, my brain is already hungry. Oh my god, is that some foreshadowing?
Yeah.
Oh no!
See you next week, folks.
All right, yeah, we'll see you next week. Thank you guys.
Containing catastrophic levels of dioxin.